Hello, fellow firearms enthusiasts. Today I want to have a discussion on the safety features of the early Marlin shotguns. These would be the 1898, Model 17, Model 19. I know there are videos out there that kind of talk about this, but they don't really show how the parts interact. So I wanted to put together a video and kind of show you how everything's supposed to work. This video is not going to be about should you fire the guns, should you not fire the guns. There's plenty of arguments on both sides. I just want to go over how all the safety features are supposed to work and show you parts that have concern. For example, I have a hammer out of my Model 19S that a previous owner damaged. And I want to show you why that damage makes that hammer unsafe to use. So to get started, I want to go over first the hangfire safety in these early Marlin shotguns. The hangfire safety is going to be your inertia recoil block and the safety hook in the gun. These are going to have a flat spring on them. And then depending on the model, some models will have the safety hook with a spring on it like this does. This has a little flat spring on it. I have seen parts where some of these, there's no spring on the safety hook. So depending on what model you have will depend on how that looks. But the way this hangfire safety works is it is designed to lock the action in battery prior to firing, as well as keeping the action locked in the event of a hangfire. And for those who may not know what a hangfire is essentially where you go to fire the weapon and all you hear is a click when the hammer falls or the striker falls on the firing, or the striker falls on the primer. You just hear a click. The gun doesn't go bang for a little bit. May take a couple of seconds, and then all of a sudden the gun decides to go bang. This was a common issue with these early shotguns because back when these were made, your shotgun shells were made out of paper. This is a paper shotgun shell. I mean, technically it's really cardboard with a brass end, but these early shotgun shells, if they got damp at all, that's where you would have the issue of hangfire, where you'd go to fire your weapon, it'd go click, nothing would happen. You might sit there and go, what the heck's going on? And then all of a sudden, bam, gun goes off. So the purpose of that hangfire safety was to hold the action locked even after, even when the gun goes click, and the action won't come unlocked unless you either depress the little plunger on the side of the receiver to manually unlock it, or the gun actually fires. At that point, the inertia causes it to unlock. So with this inertia block, I'm going to try to do this, but it's kind of hard holding all the pieces together. When the gun's in battery and locked, it'll look like this. That safety hook goes into there's a little like cutout notch in there that the safety hook rests, and it basically holds the action in battery, locked in battery basically. So the locking lug down here is being held down. It's not able to come unlocked at all. When the gun fires, the inertia from the recoil and all that will cause this inertia block there to rotate forward on the screw that it sits in. And we're falling apart. Causes it to rotate forward, and when it rotates forward, it unlocks out of that cutout there and allows the bolt to then unlock and allows you to cycle the weapon. Again, you can bypass that on these with this little button here on the side of the receiver that allows you to manually unlock for loading, unloading. But these guns are designed, even when you go to dry fire them, they are designed to stay locked like that. That's part of that whole hang fire safety. And this is very important because I mean, in today's day and age, you don't have to worry so much about hang fire, but this keeps that action locked in battery until the gun actually fires. And once it fires, then it allows you to it allows it to unlock and allows you to cycle a weapon. So it's very important that this function works correctly, and you'll be able to tell because when you have the gun fully in battery, this will stay locked, and if you go to try to pull back on the handle at all, the pump handle, it will not let you unlock the gun at all. You have to use the button on the side of the receiver in order to actually unlock and allow the bolt to cycle. So again, this is super important. And then another thing to note on these, because I have a Model 17S as well. My Model 17S, the spring was broken initially on it, and what I had attempted to try to do was use blue Loctite to reattach the spring, because basically the spring broke right at the point where it connects in. So I had attempted to reattach the spring, which in fact actually made the spring shorter. The problem with that is if the spring's not its full length, it will not properly lock like it should. So on mine, before I replaced that with the proper length spring and all that, on mine I could sit there and still pull really hard back on the fore-end handle, and it would still allow the gun to unlock. So that's not safe. You want to make sure that this is working properly to where you cannot unlock the gun unless either A, it's fired, or B, you depress the button on the side of the receiver there. So the next safety feature I want to talk about is the hammer safety sear. So inside your receiver, you have this sear that rides right up here in the top, and it's got a spring on it. That hammer safety sear, when you go to cycle the action and the hammer's brought back, that safety sear catches this top notch right here on the very top and holds it there until the action fully cycles all the way forward and the gun goes into battery, in which case then as soon as the bolt goes into battery, it pushes the sear out of the way and allows the hammer to fall forward onto the actual trigger, the actual sear portion on your trigger, which then you can fire. Or if you're going to do the slam firing feature on these, that safety sear in there will hold the hammer back all the way up until the gun goes into battery, in which case it knocks that sear out of the way and allows the hammer to fall completely, setting off the round. So if that is not working properly, what will happen if that sear is not properly catching on there, when you go to push the bolt back into battery, as the bolt's riding forward, as soon as the bolt gets far enough forward past there, the hammer is going to chase the bolt all the rest of the way, even before it's fully locked up, in which case it can prematurely set off your round before you've achieved full lockup on the gun. And so on my Model 19 that I got, or Model 19S, this is the old hammer that was originally in the gun, and it's going to be really hard for you to see, but on this portion of the hammer there, a previous owner, or I'm not entirely sure what exactly happened, but you can tell, or at least I can tell, that somebody or somehow something struck the top of that and bent it down to where it doesn't have the proper engaging surface, like this replacement hammer that I got. And so what was happening with this was that safety sear was not properly engaging. And so when I'd go to close the bolt, depressing the trigger and closing the bolt, this hammer was chasing the bolt all the way home before it was fully closed and in battery. So that's extremely unsafe. you want to make sure that there's no damage up here on your hammer for that safety sear to catch. And I have the gun completely apart, so I can't really show you, but when you go to check that, you'll know that it's working correctly if you're holding the trigger down, and you can use your thumb, press your thumb on the back of the bolt. You may have to push forward a little bit on the pump, but then you can use your thumb, press your thumb on the back of the bolt, and just kind of push the bolt all the way forward to where it closes. Here, so actually, I'll show you right here. So you can push it forward up until it closes like that, but it's still not locked in battery. And then as soon as you pull the handle forward and it locks into battery, at that point, that's when your hammer should fall. So here, actually, since I've got the bolt in here, I'll show you the safety sear, how it works. So right now with the gun out of battery, it's probably going to be a little bit hard to see, but right now this safety sear is extended by its flat spring out further, so that would allow it to catch that cutout on the top of the hammer there. When the bolt goes into battery, you can watch it moves that safety sear up and out of the way, thus allowing the hammer to travel all the way forward. So that portion of these early Marlins, or these Marlin shotguns, needs to function properly. So you need a working spring, and you need the proper cutout on your hammer undamaged. So the last safety feature I want to talk about is the firing pin safety on these bolts. So when the bolt's out of battery, if I press on that firing pin, the firing pin should not protrude all the way through the end. When the bolt clicks into battery, so the locking lug is now engaged on inside the receiver, at that point, that's when the firing pin should go through. So if I take the bolt apart, I can show you. Outside. There we go. All right. Oops. So for the firing pin safety, you have a cutout on the firing pin. So when the bolt and that cutout interfaces with this lug that's on the locking lug portion of your bolt. So when the bolt is out of battery, so the locking lug is up inside like that, that cutout is riding in there, preventing that firing pin from moving forward. As soon as your bolt goes in battery, so it's tilted, that lug obviously drops out of that slot, allowing the firing pin to come all the way forward. So if you have a damaged lug, or if this cutout is altered or damaged in any way, that will allow your firing pin to go forward. That is unsafe. So with these guns, it's very important to make sure that your lug is in good shape and the cutout is correct. So when it's out of battery, that firing pin cannot ride forward at all. So those are the primary safety features of these old Marlin shotguns. Hopefully this information is helpful if you're wanting to learn how these function. Again, this video is not intended to tell you whether or not you should go shoot your old Marlin. For that, you need to discuss this with your local gunsmith, competent gunsmith. Have them fully inspect your firearm, and if they say that it's safe to shoot, my only recommendation to you would be to use very light 12 gauge loads. Don't go for buckshot or anything like that, because these firearms were made over 100 years ago now, and you just don't truly know the quality of the metal. So hopefully this all helps. Thank you for watching.